The groom left her at the altar for being poor. Then her true billionaire father walked in. Before we start today's story, comment below where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss what's next. The bright morning sun shone through the thin white curtains of a very small bedroom. The room was poor but full of love. The walls had old wallpaper, the wooden dresser was fixed by hand, and on top of it sat a vase with wildflowers. In the corner, hanging on the closet door, was a wedding dress. It was simple but beautiful, chosen with care. Nora Calloway, a kind young woman, opened her eyes under her worn quilt. Her heart beat fast. Today was her wedding day. She was going to marry Ethan Caldwell, the man she loved with all her heart. She believed he loved her for who she was, not for her money or her background. She sat up and smiled at the dress. At that moment, her mother, Marion, knocked softly and came inside carrying tea and toast. "Good morning, baby," Marion said warmly, her eyes shiny with love. Nora hugged her mother tightly. She felt her love and care, but she also felt a little bit of worry in her mother's hug. They did not talk about it. Today was supposed to be a happy day. Nora put on her wedding dress. It was not full of diamonds or gold, but it was perfect for her. She looked like a princess. Her best friend Lesme, who was also her bridesmaid, helped her get ready. Everyone said she looked beautiful. When the car came, Nora and her mother got in. The car was small and rented, but in her heart, Nora was full of dreams. She looked out the window, seeing the city blur past. "Are you sure you are ready?" Marion asked gently. Nora squeezed her mother's hand and said, "I love him, Mama. That's all that matters." The car stopped at a huge church called St. Augustine's Cathedral. It was bigger and fancier than anything Nora had ever seen. The tall stone walls touched the sky, and colored glass windows made the light sparkle inside. Expensive flowers decorated every bench, and a music group played soft music near the altar. Guests wore shiny dresses and suits. Many of them whispered and looked at Nora. Some smiled politely, but others looked at her like she did not belong. Marion fixed her daughter's veil and whispered, "You are beautiful." Nora held her bouquet of white roses and tried to stay calm. Lesme came to check on her. "They're ready for you," she said with a soft smile. Nora took a deep breath. The music began, and Nora walked down the long aisle. Everyone looked at her. The colored light from the glass windows fell on her, making her look magical. At the end of the aisle stood Ethan in a black suit. He looked handsome, but his smile was stiff. His mother sat in the front row, her face hard and cold. His father whispered in her ear. Ethan shifted nervously. Nora's heart skipped, but she kept walking. When she reached him, he held her hand, but his hand was cold and shaky. The pastor spoke kindly. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join Ethan Caldwell and Nora Calloway in marriage." Nora tried to hear, but her heart pounded so loudly. She squeezed Ethan's hand, but he did not squeeze back. He looked more and more uncomfortable. His eyes kept going to his parents. Finally, the pastor looked at Ethan and asked, "Ethan, do you take Nora to be your wife?" Ethan pulled his hand away. A loud murmur filled the church. Everyone froze. I can't do this," Ethan said loudly. His words echoed in the giant church. Gasps filled the air. People whispered. Nora's eyes went wide in shock. Ethan stepped back and looked at her with coldness. "I can't marry you, Nora," he said harshly. "You don't belong in this family. You come from nothing. You're too poor, too different. This life isn't for someone like you." The cruel words hit Nora like heavy stones. Her bouquet slipped from her hand and dropped to the floor. The roses scattered. Some people gasped, and someone even laughed quietly. Marion covered her mouth in horror. Lesme wanted to run to her, but she froze. Ethan turned his back and walked away. The sound of his footsteps echoed loudly. He didn't look back, not even once. Nora stood frozen, tears filling her eyes. Her dream was broken. Guests whispered even louder now. Some recorded with their phones. "Poor girl. I knew this would happen," some said. Others looked at her with pity, which hurt even more. Her knees felt weak. The colored lights from the windows swirled around her, making her dizzy. She bent down and picked up her broken bouquet with shaking hands. The roses were crushed, just like her heart. The church was full of whispers and judgment. Ethan was already at the back, talking to his father, not caring about her at all. Suddenly, a new sound filled the air. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of a helicopter. It grew louder and louder until the walls of the church shook. People looked up in surprise. Some guests rushed to the doors, trying to see. The helicopter landed outside, and soon the heavy church doors creaked open. Bright sunlight poured in, making everyone cover their eyes. A tall man stepped inside. He wore a sharp black suit. His shoulders were broad, his walk strong, and two men in dark suits followed him. They were bodyguards. He looked powerful, like a king entering his castle. The whole church went silent. Everyone stared. "Who is he?" they whispered. The man walked forward with calm, steady steps. His face came into the light. His hair was silver at the sides, and his dark eyes were full of power. But when he looked at Nora, his eyes softened. He stopped in front of her. His deep voice filled the church. "Nora Calloway, my daughter." The words hit the air like thunder. Gasps echoed everywhere. People jumped from their seats. Ethan, who was almost gone, froze in shock. Everyone's eyes widened. The poor girl who had just been humiliated was not poor at all. She was the daughter of a billionaire, one she had never even known. Esme looked at the man in front of her and felt completely confused. Her mind could not understand what she was hearing. My daughter. My daughter. The words rang in her ears, but they felt impossible. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Marion, her mother, broke the silence. Tears ran down her face as she rushed to Esme's side. She grabbed Esme's hand, her fingers shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered in a broken voice. "I should have told you before. I should have told you everything." Esme turned to her mother, her heart beating so hard it hurt. "Mama, who is he?" she asked. Marion lifted her face to the man. Her eyes were full of guilt, fear, and something strange. Hope. "That's Victor Langston," she said in a trembling voice. "Your father." Gasps filled the big cathedral. The name flew from person to person like fire spreading. Victor Langston. Everyone knew that name. Even Esme's sister Nora, who usually stayed far away from the world of money and power, knew him. Victor Langston was not just any man. He was one of the richest men in the world. A giant in business, a billionaire whose companies stretched across countries. His face had been on magazine covers. His name had filled newspapers. And now, he was standing here, claiming Esme as his daughter. Esme swayed as if she might fall. Victor stepped forward quickly and placed a strong but gentle hand on her arm to steady her. "I'm sorry it took me so long to find you," he said softly. His deep voice carried both strength and kindness. "But I'm here now, and I promise no one will ever hurt you again." The guests in the church sat frozen, staring in shock. No one dared to move or speak. Ethan, Esme's fiancé, stumbled forward. His face was pale as snow. This isn't possible," he stuttered. She's... Victor's head turned slowly toward Ethan. His dark eyes locked on him, and Ethan shrank back like a small animal before a lion. "You dared to humiliate my daughter," Victor said. His voice was calm, but carried a power that shook the air. "You dared to treat her as if she were nothing." He paused, and the silence was heavy. "You and your family will regret that choice." Ethan's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked like he was choking. Victor turned back to Esme, his face softening again. "You don't have to stay here," he said gently. "Come with me. Let's leave all of this behind." Esme froze for a moment. Everything felt unreal, like a dream she could not wake up from. But then she looked around the cathedral. She saw the cold, judging faces, the whispers, the people who had always made her feel small. A wave of anger and disgust rose inside her. Then she looked at Victor. His eyes were strong and sincere. She saw no shame there, only pride. Slowly, she let the bouquet of flowers slip from her hands. The flowers fell to the marble floor with a soft crash. Then she reached out and placed her hand in Victor's. Together, father and daughter walked toward the doors. As they opened, sunlight streamed in, bright and warm. Behind them, the church exploded into chaos. People shouting, questions flying, angry voices trying to be heard. But Esme didn't look back. Outside, the air felt hot and alive. The marble steps burned beneath her thin shoes. Beyond the gates, a huge helicopter waited, its blades still spinning slowly. Victor never let go of her hand as they walked. The giant oak doors slammed shut behind them with a loud boom, sealing away the humiliation and pain Esme was leaving forever. Inside the church, people yelled and argued, but Esme refused to turn around. Ethan had thrown her away like trash, like she didn't matter. That life was over. Victor's bodyguards, tall and strong, moved ahead of them, clearing the path. The crowd outside gasped and murmured, but no one dared to block Victor Langston. His power was felt by everyone. Cameras flashed, voices shouted questions, but Victor walked on, calm and steady. They reached the helicopter. It was sleek and shining, black with golden edges, gleaming like treasure in the sun. The pilot stood waiting by the open door. Victor turned to Esme. His eyes asked her a question. He was not forcing her. He was offering. Esme's heart raced. Her mind spun with too many questions. But her instincts told her, leave now. This was her chance. She nodded. Victor helped her into the helicopter. His touch was gentle, like she might break. The door closed behind them with a soft thud, shutting out the noise of the world. Inside, it was quiet. The cabin was beautiful. Smooth leather seats, dark wood, golden details. Esme's hands shook as she buckled her seatbelt. Victor sat across from her, tall and calm. His eyes never left her. The engines roared, and the helicopter lifted into the sky. Esme pressed back against her seat as the ground fell away. Through the window, she saw the church shrinking. The stained glass windows sparkled like jewels. The crowd of guests looked like ants running around. She turned away, her throat tight. For a while, neither she nor Victor spoke. Only the loud thrum of the blades filled the air. Esme clutched her dress with trembling hands. Finally, Victor spoke. I know this is too much, he said gently. I wish it had happened another way. But I'm here now, and I promise, Esme, I'm not going anywhere. Her throat burned. She wanted to speak, but struggled. At last, she whispered, Why? Why today? Why now? Victor's eyes softened. He leaned forward, hands clasped. I have been looking for you for years, he said. Ever since I learned that your mother had disappeared with you. I hired people to search. I followed every clue. For a long time, I thought I would never find you. Then, a few days ago, I finally did. I saw your wedding announcement. I knew I had to come. I couldn't miss the chance to see you, even if it meant interrupting your wedding. Esme stared at him, her heart heavy. You knew I was getting married, she said softly, and you still came? I didn't come to stop it, Victor said, his voice low. I came to meet you, to see you at last. But when I arrived, when I saw how they treated you, I couldn't just stand by. Esme pressed her hand to her mouth. All her life, she had thought her father was someone who didn't care, someone who had left her behind. She never dreamed he would come for her. And yet here he was, flesh and blood, looking at her with pride and sadness. I thought, I wasn't good enough, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Victor's face twisted in pain. His dark eyes shone with fire. You are more than enough, he said fiercely. You always have been. The helicopter turned, flying away from the city. Below them, fields and rivers stretched out, green and gold in the sun. Where are we going? Esme asked softly. Somewhere private, Victor said. Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can talk. The word safe wrapped around her heart like a blanket. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply. She thought of Ethan and his cruel eyes. She thought of his family, their sneers and whispers. She thought of the guests in the church, their cold, judging stares. And then she thought of Victor. of how he had stood tall, unashamed, and claimed her as his daughter for all to see. When she opened her eyes, Victor was still watching her. His gaze was steady and kind. "I know this is hard," he said gently, "and I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I hope you'll let me be part of your life." Esme looked at him. Her heart was torn. Part of her wanted to hide, to protect herself, but another part of her saw the truth in his eyes. For the first time in her life, someone truly saw her. Slowly, she nodded. Victor's shoulders relaxed. A smile touched his lips, a smile full of relief and wonder. The helicopter began to descend. Below them was a huge estate, quiet and beautiful, surrounded by tall oak trees. The helicopter landed on the green lawn. The blades slowed and silence returned. Victor stood first and held out his hand. Esme took it, feeling the strength in his grip. Together they walked onto the soft green grass. Esme stopped for a moment and took a deep breath. The air was fresh and cool, and she tried to calm her racing heart. Everything felt so unreal, like she had stepped into a dream. In front of her stood a huge stone house. It was so beautiful it almost took her breath away. The walls were covered in green ivy, and on each side of the wide path were rose gardens bursting with bright colors. The place looked like it had been there for hundreds of years, cared for by many families. It was a house that spoke of old stories, of people who had lived and left their mark. Victor gently led her toward the big house, while his security guards followed behind but stayed quiet. As they reached the wide front steps, a woman walked out. She wore a neat navy blue suit. She had shiny silver hair pulled back, and her sharp eyes softened as soon as she saw Esme. "Miss Calloway?" the woman said with a warm smile. "Welcome. My name is Sylvia. I have worked with Mr. Langston for more than 30 years. Esme quickly murmured a hello, but she felt overwhelmed. Everything felt so big and formal, so far away from her old life. Inside, the house was even more amazing. The ceilings were high with wooden beams. The wooden floors shined, and thick rugs made them soft. The walls were filled with paintings, not just expensive ones, but ones that looked chosen with love. The house felt alive, like it wasn't just for showing off, but for truly living in. Esme felt a strange tug in her heart. Was it longing? Was it a wish to belong? She didn't know, but it was strong. Victor guided her into a bright sitting room with tall windows looking out at the gardens. He told her to sit on a soft chair, then sat across from her carefully, almost like he didn't want to scare her. For a moment they sat in silence. The only sounds were birds chirping outside and the quiet ticking of an old clock on the fireplace. "You have questions," Victor said at last in a soft voice. Esme twisted her hands, trying to find the right words. "Why didn't you?" she began, then stopped. "Why didn't I find you sooner?" Victor asked gently, finishing her thought. Wait a second. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe and share your favorite part in the comments below. And don't forget to drop a heart to show your support. He leaned back and sighed. The truth is hard, Esme, and it hurts. His eyes turned sad as he began to tell his story. He spoke about how he had met her mother many years ago. He was a young man then, full of dreams, trying to build his business. He had fallen in love with her mother, a bright and passionate woman who made him feel grounded and real. They married quickly, and soon after, Esme was born. But his work kept pulling him away. He spent more and more time building his empire and less time at home. Your mother wanted me to slow down, Victor said, his voice rough with regret. She wanted me to be with you, to be with her. But I was foolish. I thought I was building a future for us, but really I was leaving you behind. His face grew darker as he continued. When she left, she didn't just leave the city, she disappeared. She changed your names and cut all ties. I searched everywhere. God knows I searched. But every time I thought I had a clue, it was like smoke. It vanished. I never found her. I never found you. Esme's heart ached as she listened. She imagined her mother's fear, the loneliness, and the heavy choices she must have carried all those years. I never stopped looking, Victor said suddenly, his voice fierce. People told me to forget. They told me it was hopeless. But I never stopped. A lump rose in Esme's throat. She believed him. Deep inside, she knew he was telling the truth. And then one day, Victor said with a small smile, I saw a wedding announcement. There was a picture of you. I saw your face, your name, and I knew. I knew it was you. Tears blurred Esme's eyes. She tried to blink them away because she didn't want to look weak. But Victor's face was so full of pride, so full of love, that her walls began to fall. You came, she whispered. I would have walked through fire to get to you, Victor answered. For a long moment they sat in a gentle, fragile peace. It was like thin strings of connection weaving between them. But peace could not last. There was still the matter of what had happened at the church. Esme took a shaky breath. Ethan, his family, she began. Victor's eyes hardened. The warmth in them turned cold and sharp. I know, he said. I saw enough. He stood up and went to a wooden cabinet. From it, he took out a leather folder and placed it on the table. I didn't come just to watch your wedding, he said firmly. I came prepared. Esme frowned in confusion as Victor opened the folder. Inside were papers, corporate records, stock certificates, financial documents. You see, Victor explained, his voice calm but strong. The Caldwell family isn't as powerful as they think. Much of their fortune depends on secret partners who help from the shadows. And the truth is, he tapped one of the papers with his finger. I am their biggest secret partner. I own shares and control in many of their key businesses. They never knew. Esme stared in shock, trying to understand. And now, Victor continued, his eyes glinting, I will use those rights. What they did to you today, they will pay. Not with fists, not with shouting, but with power, with consequences. Something inside Esme sparked to life. Not hate, but justice. She remembered all the times she had been looked down upon, insulted, or treated as less. This wasn't about revenge. This was about standing tall, about refusing to be made small. Victor closed the folder with a snap. You don't need to be afraid anymore, he said. You're not alone. Esme nodded slowly. Her heart swelled with so many feelings, sadness, gratitude, hope, and a new kind of strength. She would not let this crush her. She would rise. Outside, the sun dipped lower, making long shadows across the garden. The clock chimed, its deep sound echoing through the house. Esme looked at Victor, really looked, and for the first time, she believed she had a father and a future. It wasn't the future she had planned, but maybe it would be better. A future built not on lies, but on truth and courage, and she would face it with the strong spirit that had carried her this far. Together, they would face whatever came. Together, they would begin again. The soft clock chime faded. The golden light from the setting sun filled the room, making it beautiful, but heavy too. Decisions made today would touch many lives. Victor leaned forward, his hands pressed together, his gaze sharp and steady. His face showed no anger, no joy, only certainty. He hadn't come just to find his daughter. He had come to make things right. I want you to understand, Esme, he said in a low, serious voice. This is not about revenge. Not for me, and it shouldn't be for you. This is about fixing what is broken. Esme nodded. Her heart was still hurting, but she understood. What had happened to her wasn't small. It wasn't something to quietly forgive. It was a cruel act done to shame her in front of everyone. And it needed an answer. Not for pride, but for all the quiet battles she had fought her whole life. Victor opened the folder again and slid a single paper toward her. Esme read the sharp words. It was a plan to take away the Caldwell family's power, money, and control. It was clean, quick, and crushing. They think they own the world, Victor said softly. They think they are safe behind old names and fake smiles. They believe money means they don't have to be decent. Esme looked up at him, her throat tight. And you? She asked. Victor gave a short, humorless smile. I have more money than they ever dreamed of, but I never forgot where I came from or what money can't buy. He paused. Then his voice softened. They looked at you and saw nothing. But when I look at you, I see everything. Tears pricked Esme's eyes again, but she held them back. There would be time for crying later. Now she needed to be strong. What happens next? She asked. Tonight, Victor said firmly, we call an emergency meeting of the Caldwell board. By tomorrow morning, they will know they are finished. Their accounts will be frozen, their power gone. Esme's heart pounded. It was huge power, and she felt both scared and relieved. Will it hurt other people? She asked quietly. Like the workers? Victor's eyes softened. I will protect the workers. The businesses will keep running. Only the guilty will fall. Esme nodded. It wasn't everything, but it mattered. A gentle knock came at the door. Sylvia walked in. Her face was calm, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. Everything is ready, she said. The lawyers are waiting. The messages will be sent at midnight. Thank you, Sylvia, Victor said. Sylvia walked to Esme and touched her shoulder kindly. I hope you know how remarkable you are, she said softly. Esme gave a small smile, though inside she felt unsure. She didn't feel remarkable. She felt scared and raw, but deep within, a spark of strength glowed brighter. Victor stood and Esme followed. Together, they walked into a small study with dark shelves and heavy curtains. A large screen lit up with faces. Lawyers, officers, guards, all waiting for Victor's orders. Victor introduced Esme simply, "This is my daughter." Everyone froze for a moment, shocked, but no one questioned. The message was clear. She was not a guest. She was the future. Esme sat beside Victor and watched as he gave calm, strong orders. He was like a master chess player, moving pieces with perfect planning. By the end of the call, the first steps had already begun. Esme leaned back, tired but amazed. "You make it look easy," she said. Victor gave a faint smile. "It's never easy, but it's necessary." He poured 2 glasses of water and handed one to her. "You don't have to watch if you don't want to. You've already been through enough." Esme shook her head. "I need to see this. I need to understand." At midnight, messages were sent out. They were strong messages, legal papers, notices that powers were taken away, and orders that money accounts were frozen. The proud house of the Winter family was starting to fall apart. In their grand home across town, there must have been panic. Phones would be ringing nonstop, lawyers rushing, helpers running everywhere, trying to stop the fire of trouble spreading, but it would not work. The base of their power was already breaking. Esme sat in the study, watching the news come in. Her chest felt heavy because she knew what this meant. She was not silly. She knew there would be anger, people talking, people blaming, maybe even public shame, but none of it mattered compared to what she felt in her heart. For once, the right thing was happening. Justice was winning. As the first morning light touched the sky with soft gold and pink, Victor turned to her. "It's done," he said. Esme nodded. She was too full of feelings to answer. Slowly, she stood and walked to the window. Outside, the gardens sparkled with drops of dew. Everything looked fresh and new, like the start of something better. Behind her, Victor watched with warm, fatherly pride. "You have a choice, Esme," he said. "You can leave it here, let the old world fall and make your own path, or you can stand and help build what comes next." Esme turned back, her eyes clear, her heart steady. "I want to build," she said. Victor smiled. A true smile, bright with love. "Then we will build, together." And for the first time, Esme believed it. She believed in him, but more importantly, she believed in herself. The past was gone, false dreams, empty promises, and people who treated her as if she was less. All of it was burned away. What was left was something stronger and truer. Now, beside her stood the father she had never dared to hope for. Together, they would shape the new morning. And this time, no one would stop them. The sun rose higher, shining bright on the estate. Light danced on the trees and painted the stone walls golden. Inside the study, where Esme had sat all night watching the Caldwell downfall, the air had changed. The rush and stress were gone. Instead, it was quiet, calm, but filled with a new strength. Esme stood by the tall window. Her reflection shone back at her in the glass. She stared at herself, almost like meeting her own eyes for the first time. She no longer looked like the nervous girl who had walked down the aisle yesterday with hope in her heart, hope built on lies. No, this Esme was different. She was no longer begging for others to see her value. She was no longer trying to fit into rules that were never made for her. She had faced betrayal, public shame, cruel words, and she was still standing, stronger than before. Victor came in, holding 2 cups of hot coffee. His steps were calm, unhurried. He gave one to Esme without speaking, then stood with her at the window. They drank quietly, watching the garden come alive. Birds flew from tree to tree. The breeze carried the smell of roses and wet soil. It was peaceful, but they both knew this was not the end. It was the beginning. Esme placed her cup on the windowsill and turned to him. "What happens now?" she asked. Victor smiled softly. "Now," he said, "you decide what kind of future you want to build." The words made Esme feel something new, not fear, not pressure, but freedom. She realized Victor never forced her into anything. He only cleared the way and now gave her the choice she had always deserved. The whole morning they walked together, exploring the estate. Victor showed her the stables, once filled with beautiful horses. He showed her the greenhouse, full of rare plants from his travels. He showed her the great library, full of thousands of books that made her heart ache with wonder. As they walked, Victor told stories, not only about big victories or rich parties, but about failures too, about mistakes, about being lonely while building his empire, about regrets and lost relationships. For the first time, Esme saw not just the powerful man people admired, but the real human behind it. She felt not only awe, but understanding. By noon, they sat under a giant oak tree with a picnic the staff had prepared. Esme played with her sandwich, not really hungry. "I feel like I should be angrier," she said suddenly, "at his family, at everything." Victor looked at her seriously. "Anger has its place," he said. "It can push you to change, but if you hold on to it, it can eat you alive." Esme nodded. She had felt that burning anger the day before, but now it had cooled into something stronger. Determination. "I don't want my life to just be an answer to their cruelty," she said. "Then it won't be," Victor said proudly. In the days that came, Esme began to learn. She sat in meetings with Victor's advisors. At first she stayed quiet, listening, but soon she started asking questions, giving ideas. People realized her kindness and smart thinking were not weak, they were her strength. She noticed things others ignored, the way business decisions touched real people. Victor watched with pride. He saw in Esme the kind of legacy he had always dreamed of. News of the Caldwell fall spread quickly, but no one knew how much Esme had done, except a few trusted people. Victor called it a restructuring, letting the Caldwell keep their faces, even though they had lost everything. Esme respected that. It was not about showing off. It was about moving forward with dignity. But not everyone was ready to let go. One evening, as the sun painted the estate red and orange, Sylvia brought a message. "There's a request for a meeting," she said carefully, "from Ethan Caldwell." Esme's chest tightened. Anger, sadness, old pain all mixed together. She looked at Victor. "What should I do?" "Whatever you choose," he said without pause. "You owe him nothing." Esme thought for a long time. Part of her wanted to refuse, but another part wanted closure. Not revenge, but peace. "I'll see him," she said. The meeting was set for the next afternoon at the pavilion near the reflecting pool. Victor stayed away but was close if she needed him. Esme arrived early, dressed in a simple blue dress. She felt no need for armor. She came as herself. Ethan came late, his steps unsure. He looked thin and tired. His pride was gone. He held a cheap bouquet of flowers. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, his voice rough. Esme nodded but stayed silent. "I made a mistake," Ethan rushed out. "I was stupid. I let my family's hate control me. I was scared." Esme watched him carefully. "I see," she said quietly. "I still love you," he said, desperate. "Please, give me another chance." For a moment, Esme remembered the girl she once was, the girl who loved him and dreamed of life together. But that girl was gone. You didn't lose me because you were scared, Esme said calmly. You lost me because you only saw my worth when it could help you, not when it was simply mine. Ethan flinched. I'm sorry, he whispered. I hope you find your way, Esme said gently, but not with me. She turned and walked away. She did not look back. With every step, her heart felt lighter. That night, Esme sat with Victor on the terrace, drinking tea under the stars. You did well, he said. I feel free, Esme answered. You are, Victor said, and you always were. You just had to see it yourself. The night stretched out before them, full of new paths and chances. For the first time, Esme felt ready to take them all. Not as a victim, not as a symbol, but as herself. Whole, strong, free. For the first time in a very long while, Esme woke up without feeling sad or heavy inside her heart. Usually she woke with worry pressing on her chest like a stone she could not move. But today was different. Today felt light, soft, and full of hope. Like the first flower of spring after a long, cold winter. She got out of bed and walked to the balcony. When she opened the door, the cool morning air touched her face. She breathed deeply. The gardens below stretched far and wide, filled with bright colors and lively plants. The world beyond looked big, but instead of being scary, it now seemed full of open roads and exciting adventures waiting for her. On a side table behind her, a stack of papers lay neatly piled. Eleanor, her father's assistant, had brought them late the night before. They were important papers, legal files, trust documents, and business plans. But Victor, her father, had not forced her to read them right away. He had simply told her in his calm, kind voice, "They are yours to look at when you are ready." And today, she felt ready. After a quick shower, Esme dressed in a soft white blouse and neat pants. Her steps felt light as she went downstairs. She found Victor in the sunroom, sitting with a tablet in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. When he saw her, he put everything down and stood up, smiling warmly. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," Esme answered, walking toward him. They shared breakfast together. It was quiet but peaceful, filled with small, happy conversations. Victor didn't question her like a boss would. He didn't treat her like someone he had to train. Instead, he asked her about her dreams, her hopes, and the things she wished to do in life. He wanted to know her, not as an heir, but as a daughter. After breakfast, they walked through the gardens. The air smelled sweet with flowers, wisteria and honeysuckle, while the gravel crunched beneath their shoes. Victor showed her places that were special to him. The orchard where he once dreamed of retiring, the small pond where he learned patience by fishing, and the quiet grove where he went to think whenever the world felt too heavy. Esme listened closely and shared her own small stories too, memories from her childhood, teaching moments, and dreams she once held quietly in her heart. Slowly, they were weaving a bond together. It wasn't just because of blood, but because of shared time, trust, and love growing gently between them. When they returned, Eleanor was waiting. She looked serious. "The Winter family has requested a formal meeting," she said. "They want to discuss terms." Victor raised his eyebrows but stayed silent. He looked at Esme, leaving the choice in her hands. Esme thought for a moment, then shook her head. "I have nothing to say to them." Victor nodded, proud of her answer. "Very well," Eleanor said, and with a few quick taps on her tablet, she closed the matter. Esme felt something settle inside her. A door had closed. A chapter of her life had ended. She no longer wanted to stand in the ruins of the past. The past had no power over her now. She was ready to face the future. That afternoon, Victor invited her into his private office. It was a large room filled with dark wood, heavy books, and the faint smell of leather. On his desk lay many folders, each carefully labeled. "This is what I built," Victor said softly. "The companies, the foundations, the projects. It's yours if you want it, all of it." Esme stared at the folders, surprised and overwhelmed. I don't know anything about running a business, she admitted. You'll learn, Victor replied with kindness. And you won't be alone. You'll have advisors, mentors, and people you trust. But remember, his voice softened, you don't have to decide today, tomorrow, or ever if you choose another path. My only wish is that you live the life you want, not the life others expect from you. His words touched her heart. He was not forcing her to become someone she wasn't. He was giving her freedom. Esme stepped forward and placed her hand on one of the folders. I want to learn, she said. Victor's smile grew wide and proud, reaching his eyes. Then we'll begin together. Over the next weeks, Esme worked hard. She met Victor's top executives, sat in meetings, and asked many thoughtful questions. She spent long hours in the library reading about finance, business, and helping communities. It was hard, sometimes too much, but she didn't give up. She pushed forward with quiet strength, the same strength that had helped her survive many struggles before. Slowly, she began to find her own way. She didn't copy Victor. Instead, she built her own style. She cared about people, not just profits. She created programs for schools, hospitals, and community growth. She brought kindness into business. Victor watched with shining pride. He guided her gently, but stepped back enough to let her shine. Not everyone welcomed her. Some people whispered against her. Some felt threatened by her new ideas. But Esme faced them calmly, with courage. She won supporters not by force or fear, but by her honesty and vision. She wasn't Victor Langston. She was Esme Calloway, and she would shape the future her way. One evening, after a long and tiring day of meetings, Esme came home to find Victor waiting on the terrace. There was a bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the table. He stood as she came near, his face glowing with pride. You were extraordinary today, he told her. Esme laughed softly and sat down. I was so scared, she admitted. Good, Victor said with a smile, pouring the wine. It means you care. They lifted their glasses and drank to new beginnings, to second chances, to the strange but beautiful path that had brought them together as father and daughter. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Esme felt something powerful inside her. She was no longer the girl Ethan had left at the altar. She was no longer the lost daughter people whispered about. She was herself, strong, unbreakable, and free. She was defined not by her pain, but by her choices, her courage, and the life she was building. She smiled at the night sky. The future was wide open, waiting for her, and she would step into it not with fear, but with joy. The new beginning had already started, and this time, it belonged only to her. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, you'll love the next one. It's even more exciting and full of surprises. Share your story in the comments below. Maybe your story will be the next one I share.